Hello, I'm Teresa Gutierrez, and this is your free audio when you feel lost in grief, understanding your feelings, receiving support, and reconnecting with life. Today, I'll be sharing what I wish more people knew about grief. One of the hardest parts of grief is that many of us were never taught what it actually feels like, what's normal, and where to turn for support. That's why I'm creating this audio. So, that being said, hello and welcome. Before we begin, I just want to say I'm truly sorry for what brought you here. Most people do not go searching for grief support because life is going great. We arrive here because someone or something we deeply loved died, changed, or was taken from us in some way. And grief changes us. I know that personally. In fact, many people are surprised to learn that grief isn't limited to death of a loved one. Grief can accompany any significant loss or change in our lives. People experience grief after divorce, estrangement, health challenges, trauma. There's always a grief in trauma or grief in every trauma. And there's grief in loss of trust, loss of identity, even retirement or moving, dreams that never came true. We grieve that. There's grief in relationships that didn't become what we'd hoped. Grief in difficult childhood experiences, quote unquote, big or small, right? Grief in pet loss, and of course, death, and so much more. Yet, because we don't always recognize these experiences as grief, many people end up carrying the pain alone without understanding what they're actually going through. So I created this audio because I don't want you to feel as alone, confused, frightened, or emotionally lost as I once did. When my mom died suddenly in 1989, my whole world broke apart. She was my person. I did not have an angsty teenage relationship with my mom. We were super close. I remember being 15 years old, lying my head on her chest in the hospital after she died. Her body was already cold, but I didn't want to leave her. And for me, the funeral made it all worse. And honestly, for a long time, I wasn't okay. At 15, I didn't really know how to grieve. Not that adults do either, but I was 15 and I didn't have a clue. And what made it all even worse is that I also didn't feel safe grieving. It was not safe for me to grieve. There were other layers of trauma happening in my life at the same time. And somewhere inside myself, I learned some very painful behaviors that took me years to unlearn in adulthood. Things like don't be emotional, don't fall apart, definitely don't do that, and don't say the scary or painful thoughts out loud, don't burden people, and certainly don't make others uncomfortable. So instead of processing grief, I shoved it down and carried it alone for years. Okay, actually, for decades. And what I've come to learn over the years is that grief doesn't automatically heal just because time passes. That is not how it works. Time does not heal all wounds. We have to choose healing. Grief lives in the body when we don't feel it and heal it. Grief lives in the nervous system and it lives in the stories that we begin telling ourselves. Grief shapes relationships, identity, trust, and our health, our physical health. And it affects our sense of fear in the world and our ability to feel safe in life. So today I want to talk all about grief, honestly, about grief, not just the polished versions. We're definitely not going to do any bypassing today. So, not the version that says everything happens for a reason, or they're in a better place, or just stay positive. You know, those possibly true but painful things people say when they mean well, but it feels like a hot poker that makes you wince. We're not doing that today. So instead, we're going to talk about the real experience many people living through grief feel, and that includes you. Because if you're grieving right now, I want you to know something very important. Just because you're grieving doesn't mean you're broken. I know it may feel that way, and it's okay for you to have that feeling, but grief is normal. You are human. It's okay to grieve. Grief can feel very emotional, of course, but it can also feel physical, spiritual, mental, and even existential. Sometimes people do feel numb, very disconnected, panicked, exhausted, foggy, terrified, emotionally overwhelmed, full of regrets, completely unable to focus, unable to care about normal life. Sometimes the chest or physical heart hurts. It hurts physically. And sometimes breathing can feel difficult. It can feel gaspy or graspy, like you just cannot catch your breath. Sometimes your nervous system feels wired but tired and it affects your sleep. And sometimes you feel nothing at all. All of this and more can be part of grief, part of the grieving process. And grief is not linear. You may have heard of the 5 stages of grief. What many people don't realize is that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross developed that model while studying people facing their own death and coming to terms with that. She did not create it for those grieving the loss of someone else. Someone else, and we're still here living. While that model can be helpful for some, grief rarely unfolds in neat, predictable stages. Most people experience grief as a winding, messy path filled with many different emotions that come and go over time. You may feel acceptance one day and devastation the next. You may laugh in the morning and cry in the grocery store parking lot that afternoon. That doesn't mean you're failing at all. It means you're grieving. And there is nothing wrong with that. One of the most common fears I hear is this. If I really let myself feel this grief, I'll never come back from it. People are often terrified that if they begin crying, they'll never stop. So instead, many people hold everything in. But suppressed grief doesn't actually disappear. Suppressed grief often turns into anxiety, emotional numbness, chronic overwhelm, disconnection, exhaustion, isolation, addictive behaviors, hopelessness, feeling emotionally frozen, or physical illnesses. We become afraid of feeling, but allowing emotion is actually a skill. Yes, feeling our feelings is a skill. One simplified practice to do this that I want to offer you today is something I call NOW, N-O-W. And I didn't invent it, but I also don't remember where it came from. But you can look it up if you want. So NOW stands for name, open, witness. When a wave of grief arises, begin by noticing what's happening. Name the grief, the sadness that comes with loss, but also name any accompanying feeling such as anger, fear, regret, loneliness, or something else. Because a lot of times, grief alone isn't the only one that shows up. Other emotions are poking around in there too. So then allow yourself to feel it, not forever, not all day, just a few moments. Notice where it's showing up in your body. Is there a heaviness in your chest? Is there a lump in your throat? Is there a tightness or an ugh in your stomach? Ugh, that feeling. As you feel the emotion, witness it with compassion. Rather than trying to fix it or judge it or distract yourself from it or push it away, simply stay present with it for a little while. You can even set a timer if you need to. You may notice the feeling changing. It might soften or it might intensify, or it might just start moving around, vibrating or moving to a different location in the body. And all of that's okay. There's nothing you need to do except be present with your experience. This is being a witness. And all I do while I'm witnessing is I imagine my breath moving through the places in my body where I notice this feeling is showing up. You don't have to do that part, but sometimes it helps. For me, it helps a lot. I have a digest negative emotions video on YouTube, and it takes you into an even deeper process of this very simplified process. But for now, this is good enough. And so when it's time to return to your day, return to your day. The goal is not to stay immersed in grief. The goal is to create a little space for your feelings to be acknowledged and witnessed with compassion, like you would give to a little child. Give compassion to yourself rather than constantly pushing it away. One of the hardest parts of grief is not only the loss itself, but the meanings we attach to it, the stories we tell ourselves. Thoughts like, I'll never be okay again, or nobody will love me like they did, or I'll never love again. My best days are behind me. I don't know who I am anymore. Life is unsafe. I cannot handle this. I'm broken. When we're grieving, thoughts can feel absolutely true, but thoughts are not always facts. Feelings are not always facts. Yes, it's a fact we're feeling it, but that doesn't mean it's based on the thought being true, because thoughts are not always facts. One practice that can help is simply writing your thoughts down and asking, is this objectively true? Or is this a fear story my pain is creating? And most importantly, does this thought move me toward healing and possibility or deeper into despair? Healing doesn't mean forgetting. So I want to say something to you that may matter very deeply. Healing does not mean forgetting your person or what you've lost. Healing doesn't mean never feeling grief again. Healing doesn't mean pretending that loss didn't matter. For me, healing meant creating a new relationship with my grief, a new relationship with myself, and a new relationship with life. And in regard to my mom, I created a new relationship with her on the other side. Over time, I stopped asking, how do I stop grieving? And I started asking, how do I carry this with love while still allowing myself to live? For me, that's what healing became. Reconnecting with life while carrying love forward with me. Because your life is not over, even if part of you feels like it is. Different things help different people, but here are some things that genuinely make a difference. and you can decide if they're useful to you or not. Safe emotional support, being witnessed without judgment, nervous system care, true rest, not streaming or scrolling. That's not the same thing as truly resting. Hydration and nourishment, movement and breath, nature. And that includes if you don't have like a ton of nature around you, sunrise and sunset are a natural part of cycles, and it's really healing to witness sunrise or sunset every day when grieving. Journaling, spiritual connection, grief education, community, any type that feels soothing and supportive. Therapy or grief support when needed, allowing emotions instead of suppressing them. This is how we practice self compassion. Meaningful rituals. I've been to shamanic grief ritual and other types of rituals that have been extremely helpful for me. And healing practices, because grief is not only emotional or mental, it often lives in the body and the nervous system. So many people find support and relief through Reiki or other biofield therapies. I know many grieving people secretly fear that life will never feel meaningful again. But I want you to know something. Grief, oh gosh, I always say this wrong. Forgive me. Growth after grief is possible. We can choose that. Not because the loss was good, not because suffering is magical, but because human beings are capable of transformation, whether we like it or not. So, growth after grief is a possibility. Some people may not choose that, but you're here listening to this. So, I'm going to trust that you're choosing growth through this grief. And some people may eventually discover deeper self understanding, stronger boundaries, greater compassion for themselves and others, spiritual awakening, a new purpose, emotional resilience, more authentic living, a deeper appreciation for life itself. None of these erase grief or the loss itself. While grief may always remain part of your story, it doesn't have to define your future. Many people find that with support, they begin to experience greater peace, renewed hope, deeper connections to themselves and others, and in many different ways we didn't know was possible. And we also can experience a growing capacity to fully participate in life again, feeling connected. The changes in you can exist alongside the grief. And in many ways, grief itself begins to transform within you. If listening to this has made you realize that you don't want to walk through grief alone anymore, I want you to know that additional support is available. I work with grief in two different ways. Number one, the grief recovery method. It's a structured, evidence-based program that helps people complete unresolved emotional pain connected to loss. And number two is Reiki or biofield therapy. It's a very gentle, non-invasive, complementary approach that supports the nervous system, and many people find helpful for relaxation because sometimes grievers can't relax. And it definitely helps with stress reduction and emotional well being during times of grief. Some people choose one approach and meet once a week for 7 consecutive weeks, and others choose to combine the modalities. So they meet twice a week for 7 consecutive weeks. The choice is entirely up to the individual. You don't have to pretend that you're okay when you work with me. You don't have to rush your grief. There's not really an agenda beyond supporting you. And you don't have to carry everything alone. There is no hurry, and you don't have to do it alone. And I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. Wherever you are in your grief journey now, I want you to remember this. Your pain is real, but so is your love. Your love is real, and your life is still meaningful and worthy of tenderness, connection, and hope. I pray that you may feel love's presence and guidance as you walk your path toward healing and wholeness. May your heart be held with tenderness. May you be supported in ways both seen and unseen. May you find moments of peace, even in the midst of sorrow. And may you have hope return to you in its own perfect time.